So I'd like to kick off this session of three presenters with Mariela Gonzalez. She's now in the second year of her master's degree specialising in geospatial intelligence. She's being supervised by Zaung with support from, I think Ash was supporting this particular project. And so this particular scholarship was supported by the Faculty of Business and Law under the HIVE scheme. And I will hand over to Mariela.
Hello everyone, thank you for coming, especially to my supervisor. Thank you now. Thank you Ash for your guide during the project. Today I'm going to present the main results of an spatial analysis focused on road safety around a school zone in Western Australia. To understand why this matters, I'll start to give you some brief background. In 2023, 1,270 Australians lost their life during crash accidents. In fact, 39 of them were children. Road crashes are among the top 3 causes of hospitalization and ranked as the second or the fourth cause of death. So the key question here is not only to know how many crashes happen, but also to know where they happen and why. So to answer that question, we have done this study, which actually analyzed road crashes around school zones in Perth metropolitan area. We have used data from 2019 to 2023. A spatial and multi-year approach allows us to identify patterns rather than just study isolated events. Instead of analyzing schools as individuals, we have studied several factors as well, such as public transport services, road crashes distribution, road crashes severity, traffic, local traffic, and then socio-economic vulnerability. So let's start. I'll present you some of the main results. This map is showing the road crash risk. As you can see, what is clear to me, it might not be as clear to you because the slide is not that, the points are not that big, but we're gonna fix it, this one right now. Here we can see high risk areas is not randomly distributed. They keep appearing on the same areas across the city year by year. We got here northern part. They also came to western part, CBD, eastern part, Victoria Park and surroundings, and we also have another spot here in Fremantle and surrounding. Higher risk, I'm also would like to draw your attention to this graph, which also highlight that areas remain sort of stable around the year, but as you can see here, these areas are changing over the time. Despite the areas remaining stable, there is a switch between the risk categories. And I also would like to highlight the COVID event effect on this time. Before 2020, the categories were more or less evenly distributed, whereas after COVID, medium risk remained dominant. So why does this happen? Let's have a look. We have to look at crash count. On this map, we're seeing road crash count from 2019 to 2023. In this map, the crashes appear to be everywhere, right? They appear to be spread across the city. However, what happened if we just focus on the areas that actually concentrate the higher numbers of risk? There is a clear pattern starting to appear. We got roads that actually concentrates more of the crashes, and this road also structure the mobility of Perth, and also connecting north to south and east to west. I want to ask you or request you to remember these same hotspots I'm presenting now, because now we're gonna compare the normal situation around the year just with the school zone situation. This is showing as well road crash count, but just on the school zones. In gray color, you can see the suburbs that actually have a high crash count, which is similar spot as I showed you before. Looking at all years together allow us to identify these patterns. In 2019, the high crash count is limited to a certain number of suburbs. However, as we move forward in time, we start to see how the same areas remain affected, as well as how other areas became to be involved in this process. It's actually like the crash effect is spreading from the initial hotspots identified in 2019. It's like the pattern is expanding. You might be asking why it's happening in these areas. Well, there is just a common feature around this suburb, and it's the fact that they all have mixed land use. All of them, they have either residential use, commercial, maybe a little bit of industrial, and all of these ones are presenting mixed land use, and all of the roads that are connecting these areas have different vehicles going through there. Let's have a look. The suburbs I mentioned before that has highest crash count. When we compare the situation, we can prioritize these three, which has the highest count. On these slides, we're not seeing not only how many crashes happen, but also under what situation. If we compare the type of crashes here with the overall tendency, with the drop-off at pick-up time across the three locations, we can see a clear pattern. Can you identify which is? Actually, the rear end collision became the dominant type crash count. I know it might be weird, I know you might be wondering what's happening with Australians. Are they daydreaming? Are they distracted? What is happening with the crashes? Why is this one the most popular one, or why is the dominant one? Whichever the situation is, this slide is actually telling us that this situation is happening and we have to look forward in time if it's remain. When we compare the results with 2023, it is clear that the pattern remains. The rear end collision remain as the dominant crash time across the year in the same location. This is an important finding, and also I would like to highlight that between 20 and 40% of the crashes happen during drop-off and pick-up time, making a school zone a higher risk zone. Well, we have looked at where they happen, how many. Now let's try to explain why is this happening. On this map, we are seeing annually average daily traffic in three scenarios. On the first one, using the whole year, the whole data. On the second image, just using the 7 to 9 to simulate the traffic during drop-off time. On the third one, just using 2 to 4 to simulate the pickup time. And now we are trying to see the suburbs there. Are they having heavy traffic? Because as I told you before, these areas that most traffic collision were near to the corridors, to the high volume corridors. Are they actually having it? So as thicker the line is, as more volume we'll have. And we actually can see there that, for example, Midland or Fremantle doesn't have very high traffic. And if we compare the distance from their school zone throughout this scale, the distance from the school zone with a very high traffic road, we actually can see they're not that close to each other. They already have a separation that with more than 250 meters. You might be asking why is this important? Actually, schools are not located in highways or freeways. It's common sense, right? Why is this happening then? And it's because to go to schools, drivers usually take the high-speed corridors, and then they go closer to the school zone, and then a speed suddenly drop. And what the driver has to do? Adapt quickly. I'm driving 100 meters per hour, now how to drive 40? Of course, this transition generates braking, constant braking, stopping, and sometimes retarded reaction. They're not allowed to react on time. This might help us to explain why rear-end collision is the main cause. You might thinking, okay, let's stop driving, let's use public transport. Is actually helping? Well, I bring you again the suburbs with the highest crash count, and you also see on the lines the number of buses scheduled during the weekdays from 7 to 4 on the first map, 7 to 9 on the second, and in the last one, 9 to 4. As you can see there, many of the areas, all of the suburb, has a very good service of public transport. They might have more than 100 buses going through there. You might think, no, maybe they just got one route, they don't want to use this one. Let's check. On this map on the dots, I'm showing you diversity of routes. How many different routes go through there? I would like to highlight Fremantle, for instance. It has between 3 and 8 different routes with more than 100 buses going through. So all of these suburbs, they are well served of public services. What it means is actually public transport is not helping to alleviate or to solve this pressure of traffic conditions. On this slide, I just want to highlight the socioeconomic vulnerabilities. This slide is showing areas with high socioeconomic disadvantage. And it also showing us road crash count, on the red dots being the highest one. As you if you make me the favor to remember the areas I mentioned you before, you can actually see how the areas with high vulnerability keeps overlapping with the road crash count. We got here, for instance, Osborne Park, Morley, Fremantle and surroundings, Victoria Park and surrounding, Cannington, and also, and more important ones, we got areas with very, very high vulnerability. We got here Midland, Gosnell, and new areas I haven't mentioned before because the crash count is not as high as the other one. It doesn't mean it doesn't matter. They still have crashes. We got Rockingham and Mandurah. To wrap up this discussion, I'd like to try you to remember 3 things. The first one is suburbs with mixed land use tend to have higher crash count. The second one is high crash count not always aligned with the traffic volume. And the last one is the dominant crash type around the school zone is the rear collision. On that slide, I'm gonna reinforce the message. I just bring this image back because we also did create a dashboard, a 3D dashboard, and it might help me to help you as well to understand my message. So the first one was suburbs with mixed land use tend to have higher crash count. Here you can see pillars, right? The red ones. So if we see where the pillars located, we can see them here, the same suburb I mentioned before. We got here Osborne Park, then we got per CBD. If we go here to the eastern, we got Morley, Mount Lowley, Midland. If we go to the southeast, we got here Victoria Park until come to Gosnell. So same location, mixed land use. Now, if we compare the crash count, the pillars with the traffic corridors, then we can see here Mitchell Freeway. And we can see here another big highway. Do you think this is, let's just think about the thicker of this line. Do you think the volume of traffic going through here is the same that's go to Fremantle? It's not, right? And despite that, we got a big pillar here on Fremantle. So I just want to reinforce the takeaways. And the other one, it might be a bit different to see on this screen, but just keep in mind, rear-end collision, it's a dominant crash type. That's all what I have to say today. Thank you so much for coming. Do you have any questions?